Retail fundraising as a concept can be, taught in this way, but at its implementation, it's deeply, deeply individual.
How do I just say, I'm doing work, give me money? There is something that is from the inside holding us back. So,
Yes.
what would you say to that?
The retail donor, the individual donor, the lay donor does not understand any of that. They need to feel, they need to be emoted. And that's what our story is going to tell. Who we expect to give does not give, and who we least expect to give actually lands up giving. So we have no idea who will give and who will not give, and we have to get rid of those cobwebs in our head about whether a person will give or not. One another big mistake that most nonprofits make is they keep talking about what their organization has done. Right? But most people are they're not giving to the organization.
They're giving to the cause.
They're giving to the cause.
So, what would be the process that you would say this retail fundraising as a BAU would look like?
Right. So, let me put this in the context of a framework that we've created just to make it easier to explain to your viewers, which we call as LIFE, which is abbreviation for List, Inspire, Fundraise, and Engage.
Oh, lovely.
Right? And List and Inspire are really things which are largely have to be done one time. At least 80% of the work is one time, and then 20% is repetitive. And Fundraise and Engage is what you do on a continuous, consistent basis, day in, day out. So the first step is making a list of donors, right? Making a list of all prospective donors, not actual donors, but prospective donors. So obviously, it includes the actual donors. And you're starting with going back 10 years in your organization, 5 years in your organization, making a list of everyone who has ever given to you, right? Then looking back and saying it, who has the organization interacted with, right? Who have been potential. And if, for example, I may be working with beneficiaries who've become alumni and who are in good jobs today earning money, right? They are also part of my list, right? Looking back at, friends, families of founders, CEOs, senior management, putting all of that together. And some of this is not difficult. It looks a lot of effort, but it's literally 3 clicks of a button on Google to download your entire Google list. Right. So it's as easy as that. So I think the first step is just making a list of donors. And we generally advise people to make a list of at least 5,000 prospective donors. And that seems like a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not that difficult. So just to give you an example, we did in one of our programs where we had 20 organizations where we were teaching them how to kind of employ this framework. Before the program started, 3 organizations had a list size of more than 5,000. Okay. And when we went through this phase with them and we actually helped them put this together, 15 organizations had a list size of more than 5,000.
Not bad.
Right?
Yeah.
So huge jump. On average, I think the list size increased by 12 times.
Yeah, I can.
For organizations, right? Pretty much for everyone, it doubled at least, right? So 15 out of 20 organizations had more than 20 at 5,000, and 19 out of 20 had more than 3,000. Okay, so it's not that difficult. It's actually our own inhibitions and our own beliefs around who will give and who will not give. And one of the things I have found, and it has been repeated with person after that, is who we expect to give does not give, and who we least expect to give actually lands up giving. So we have no idea who will give and who will not give, and we have to get rid of those cobwebs in our head about whether a person will give or not. Our job is to ask. Our job will never be to make sure that they give. Right? So the more number of people we are asking, the better the chance of success. Yeah. So for me, this is the most critical piece in the puzzle, is making sure you have enough of a list. Right? And I'll come back to this at the last segment, why it's important to have a large list and why you need to keep it this high. And then once you've got the list, then it's a question of having somebody in the organization make sure the list is continuously being added to out of everyday interactions that different people in the organization are having, right? Somebody's going and meeting a district collector, somebody's going and meeting a funder, somebody's going and meeting a consultant. Are you ensuring that everyone is being added to your list to who you can potentially ask, or at least who you will keep updated about your organization? So I think we like to call it an email ninja, having one person in your organization who is in charge of the list. right? And that's really the junior person that we're talking about. The second phase is inspire, right? At the end of the day, giving by individuals is all about giving with the heart. A lot less giving with the head. It's a lot of impulsive giving. It's a lot about emotional giving, and you got to tug at those heartstrings. You got to be able to tell a story, write a story, show a story of your organization, of the work that you are doing, and specifically talk about what is that ask that you are asking for from that donor. And some of this is not rocket science. I mean, it's really potentially the same story that you're showing CSR, the same story that you're showing a thing, but talking a different language. I think a lot of language that we use with institutional fundraising is a lot of language which is meant for two people who are sitting across and understand the same at the same wavelength, understand the jargon, understand the terminology. The retail donor, the individual donor, the lay donor does not understand any of that. They need to feel, they need to be emoted. And that's what our story is going to tell. That's what our ask is going to be. The ask is very similar. You know, a lot of people say, how do I ask? I'm saying, you always ask CSR and say, I want 10 lakh rupees to educate 100 children. But this is just the same thing. You want 10,000 rupees to educate one child. There's no difference really between the two. It's just your ability to bring that number down is all that you're asking somebody to do. So I think developing a story and developing your ask, two unique identification things, is what Inspire is all about. Fundraise is a phase where you actually go and raise funds. So even we would say do crowdfunding, but do it once a year, first of all. Do it structurally, but to make sure you at least get some money, right? So when you've done this list phase, you've done the Inspire phase, you should get some money out of it. So go ahead and do it. And the last phase is engage, which for us, I think is the most important thing. Because you can't keep asking your donors for money, you have to engage with them. You have to tell them what it is. And so you gave an example of a newsletter. So everyone sends a newsletter. But what is this newsletter that you're sending? Right? How are you engaging? Right? And I think we've broken it up into two parts. Saying one is online engagement, the second is offline engagement. Right? Online engagement is what you do with a newsletter, what you do with social media, and so on. So in newsletter also, what are you covering is very important. So a lot of organizations, just the way you send a newsletter. So first of all, frequency, right? Many people do it once a quarter. That's just too less. You know, if you get 4 emails a month as a donor, how are you even likely to register the fact that you got the email? Forget read it. Highly, highly unlikely. Then that email will come in one PDF file of some 16 pages, right? Now, who's going to download that? So I think understanding how to send a newsletter is very important. You got to do it monthly. It's got to be in the email itself, such that at least the crux of the material is in the email. You're not making people click more links to go to some site. Again, all of that leads to drop-offs. And most importantly, how do you make it engaging for someone to read the email? Right? So we say 2 very key things out there. People will get engaged either if there's a story, right, that they feel emoted about, they feel good about. And that's as a story which has to also be different. You can't give me a beneficiary story every week. And when you do that, I mean, or every month, and it's just going to read very similar. So I'm going to zone out of that very quickly. There's this organization called CMCA, which does lovely newsletter. 1 week they'll write about a beneficiary. The next week they'll write about the teacher of their child. The next week they'll write about a district collector or district magistrate who's working in that area. Then they'll talk about a volunteer in their organization. They'll talk about how a person became a board member in their organization. So they've taken a very wide spectrum of stakeholders to tell a story about. And that is very, very important. Right? How do you tell a story about different people, which are fundamentally different stories, which is what will keep any viewer engaged, right? You want a reader to be engaged, you have to tell different stories. Right? And the second reason why somebody will read your newsletter is if they feel they've got some more knowledge out of it. Knowledge is not going to come about telling what your organization is doing, right? I think that's one another big mistake that most nonprofits make is they keep talking about what their organization has done, right? But most people are they're not giving to the organization.
They're giving to the cause.
They're giving to the cause, right? So when they're giving to the cause, very fundamentally, you want to make sure that you tell them about the cause, right? For example, if a donor's child is afflicted with Down syndrome, the parents will definitely be wanting to know more about it, right? And they are almost like half experts around that. They want to know more. They want to know what's happening in the world. They want to know what's the latest development. Can you be that curated source of information for that parent to know more about that cause. Right? I think that is very, very key, because if I feel that I'm getting more and better information from here than I get from anywhere else, I'm more likely to open a newsletter. And so again, I think that's something that we talk about. And then there's offline engagement. I think to the extent possible, and again, it may not be possible for all organizations, but I think it's possible for 80 to 90% of organizations to make sure that they have certain an offline engagement event in itself. So many organizations, one of the ones in Bangalore and Bombay also, they do a donor day, a donor visit day, right? And we ask it, a lot of people think, oh, it's too much work, I have to coordinate with the donor, I have to do this. But I think you have to productize it. You have to designate saying maybe third Saturday of every month from 10 to 1 in the morning, donors can come and visit us, right? And then organize a tour. Organize a very, very structured, curated tour of your facilities, interaction with your beneficiaries, make it as engaging as possible. There's an organization in Chennai called Sevalaya. It's actually about 40 kilometers out of the city, right? So going there is not trivial, right? So what Sevalaya does to make it really easy for donors is they organize a bus, right? Even a bus will take whatever 1 or 2 hours to get there. And so it's a half-day event, maybe more like you'll be back by 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, right? So almost your entire day is gone. And people say, who will do this, who will go? But the beauty is you have the donor engaged for those 4 to 6 hours that you have him, right? And people who go there are really committed to go there. And when they're going there, they're completely engaged. It's not like a Zoom call where half the time no one's there, right? But here, because you have people physically with you, you have the opportunity from the time they board the bus till the time they leave that bus to engage with. And they do this beautifully, right? And it's a very structured tour. And I think a lot of organizations have this. Most of them, though, just come in and then somebody will take them around and do kind of, it's a whistle stop tour, or it's just a formality. I think more organizations have to structure this, curate this, and train their people to do this in a very good manner. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. Just have to put in the effort. And then you announce to the world that every third Saturday, I will do this. You can come.
Right.
So everybody has to come at 10. The tour starts at that time. And you do it. And imagine the lovely social media output that you get out of this. Right? Even if 5 people come, it's a lot of people for you to, use and put up on social media. Not just the photographs, but what they said. Capture videos, capture things. So create marketing collateral out of that. That 5 people will have an impact on 500 people. Right? One person coming from a corporate will tell another 200 people in the corporate. Use that one person to send a story to their HR. That HR will love the story and they'll circulate it in the entire organization. Right? That's the value that one gets out of offline engagement. So I think engagement in itself will then drive fundraising, which will become pull-based. It will become, I am here, I am doing this good thing, and so people will give without you needing to. I mean, that's the ultimate stage that you want to get to, that people give to you without you asking. I think it's a long journey, but I think you have to always employ both a little bit of push and pull. But I think you have to at least do all the things that will help for the pull. Today, most organizations only focus on the push, which is asking for money. Right? And because of that, we don't do the engagement part of it. I think engagement is critical to get money.
In all of this, there was a little voice in my head, which I think a lot of people relate to, is especially on the online engagement. The offline one, see, the thing is, most people doing good work are, grounded, down to earth, focused on the authenticity of what they're doing and the genuineness. It's like we're working for a genuine cause. For those folks, especially now in the age of AI-driven emails that are getting written, how do you ensure, especially in the online track, how do you ensure that you are authentic in your outreach? Because I know that will matter to a lot of people listening.
So let me answer that in a different context. A lot of founders, a lot of organizations, most organizations are small. Most organizations barely have teams to do programs, forget doing comms and stuff like that, right? Think, how do we do this? How do we figure this out? How do we put an email system? How do we make nice emails? My answer to them is, if you don't have bandwidth and time to do that, don't do it. But write one, I think your founder owes it to his supporters, to his network, to write one genuine, authentic email a month.
Right.
just from the heart, email. Write it as if you're writing to a friend.
Right.
That's it.
In whatever language that you are most comfortable.
Yeah, in whatever way you are most comfortable. I won't say in whatever language you are most comfortable. I would say in whatever language your audience is most comfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair.
Just write, just talk. And if you think that you can't write, then say it.
Right.
Articulate it, right? I think a lot more people in the non-profit space are much better writers than they are, video folks. So write it. It's okay. I think a lot of what is written, and I think the other thing which is a big difference between non-profit and for-profit. A lot of times in for-profit, you say advertising, let's keep it small, let's keep it brief, let's keep it succinct. I think non-profit thrives in long form. I think stories thrive in long form. They don't. We have to tell stories. Stories can't be short form. They have to be long form. And yes, you will have less of an audience, but the audience that you will have will be deeper, will be more engaged. So I always, say have long form stuff rather than short form stuff, right? But as far as writing something, I think just write an authentic email as if writing. And I'm sure all these founders at some point of time have written to people asking for money without actually asking for money.
Yeah.
Right? They've just talked about their own passions, their own work, the change that's happening on the ground. I think it comes very naturally to any entrepreneur. So just write an authentic letter, if at all. That's it. It doesn't have to be anything more fancy than that.
And the second half to that, when you speak about making the ask through that email, through that outreach, that is also giving me qualms, imagining myself as a thing. How do I just say, I'm doing work, give me money? There is something that is from the inside holding us back. So
Yes.
What would you say to that? What is that?
I think that is the primary reason why most nonprofits don't do retail fundraising. Right. They are not comfortable asking. And it was very interesting. I heard this from another NGO, and they said, CSR gives because it's the law. They have to give because of the law. So I don't mind going and telling them. To me, that's like a business transaction, right? You are supposed to give, I'm supposed to take, so let's do a transaction. Institutional funders give because they have money, they have a theory of change, or they want to impact a certain sector, and so they have to give. I'm working in that sector, so I will ask. But why should individuals give?
Exactly. The poor things, they have their lives to live.
Yeah, why should they give? And thus it doesn't make sense for me to ask them, was what the NGO founder told me. So I said, it's the donor wants to give. You are actually just helping to fulfill his want, his need. And the biggest reason why retail fundraising does not happen is because we are too shy to ask. So the first thing we have to get over ourselves is our shyness. At the same time, you will tell me a litany of problems that you have with CSR. You will tell me a litany of problems you have with institutional. But the real tragedy is all the problems you have with yourself in not asking. Right? So if you can't ask, and you are doing this asking a day in, day out, you're going to a government office asking them for something, you are asking something of your team. And so this is just another ask. It's just for money. That's the only difference. But you're forgetting the fact that actually asking people for money is helping them realize their dreams. You are actually, I won't say you're doing them a favor, but I think it's a win-win situation. They want to do something, you are the enabler of that, and you are enabling them to do that for you.
Well, that's fair. Again, I see the point. It's hard to get over that idea that asking somebody for money is different, but I like that perspective that ultimately they do feel. I'm thinking of my cousins and others who give very regularly. I'm thinking of how for them it is also a way to give back, that we've been brought up that way, that we must give back, and in some sense you're helping them live their values by being a credible landing place for this want of us. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I think, and I think the question is, how do I get over it? And I think the best way to get over is actually doing a crowdfunding campaign and putting yourself into that hot zone of asking for money. When you do that, the amount that you will learn is amazing. And you will get over your fear in one thing. But you have to do that. Because honestly, if a founder tells me, you may not like raising money, but you have to do it. And if you don't want to do it, if you say, I don't want to do it, I don't think you have any right to be a founder. I think you're doing a disservice to your beneficiary segment by not doing what you are supposed to do as an organization. It's like corporate, a CEO can't say, I don't like making sales. No, I won't make sales. I mean, that's what is the organization is about. Uh, yes, you are working to improve lives of people, but to improve the lives of people, you need money. Without money, you can't do that. And to the extent you can do that, please go ahead. I mean, no problem with that. But if your fundamental model is not based on that, right? If you're not a Robin Hood army kind of thing, and you are an organization that needs money to help people, then you have to go and raise money. There's no two ways about it.
I had a colleague who, when they'd have to do something that it wasn't in their natural style to, they would anchor themselves saying, we're doing it for the children, we're doing it for them.
Absolutely.
And then they would do
Yeah.
it.
It's about you're not raising money for yourself. You're not doing it for yourself, right? You're doing it for somebody else. And please remember that when a corporate is doing anything, right? Anybody's trying to sell you anything, they're actually doing it for themselves. But so you're in a much better boat. You're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your cause. And that's the reason why you should be doing it.
So are there any other examples of interesting practices that nonprofits are doing that others can learn from and get inspired by?
Right. So let me give you an example of an organization. It's called Foundation for Excellence. They have, over the last 10 years, developed an extremely strong alumni-giving model. So basically, FFE is an organization which provides scholarships to children to pursue their engineering, medical, and now many other fields as well. Folks who have taken their scholarships in the past have now risen in positions with multiple organizations, MNCs like Amazon and Google and Microsoft and various different organizations, earning good amounts of money. About 10 years ago, FFE put in place a practice within its organization to raise money from alumni. Today, its alumni giving contributes close to about 30% or 1/3 of their overall budget. Right? Which is huge given that it's, I think, about a 20 crore organization.
Yeah.
And it's not just about what alumni are giving, but also what alumni are enabling. So many times alumni have helped them get CSR grants from their organizations, right? So that again would not have been possible without the alumni, right? So I think it just goes to show the strength and the possibilities of giving by fundamentally people who were your beneficiaries many years ago. And if you have managed to cultivate them, if you have managed to engage them, and FFE does a great job in engaging its alumni. I think it realizes the importance of it to do it. They also very importantly put in place a system, and they use Salesforce something to put in place a system to manage their alumni. Right? I think the beginning, they had a huge problem because they never had contact details of alumni. The earlier year beneficiaries, they had never collected any contact details, so they had no way of reaching them. But again, that's a system that they built over a period of time. They got that information, and then they kind of started asking them, doing events, getting people to give back. And all of these people were more than happy to give back because they had personally benefited from somebody else's giving. And in some respect, this is a paid forward for them. So I think that's a great thing. Yeah, that's another example I want to give of beneficiaries. Another organization in Tamil Nadu called Vidya Rammam. Unfortunately, the founder is no more. But we had done worked with them on a crowdfunding campaign where we had run a matching challenge and they had participated in it about 15 years ago. Now, this was an organization that had been working in its area for the last 40 years, impacting thousands of households in that region, right? Never ever asking money from its beneficiaries. This time was the first time in 40 years that they decided, because of this campaign, that they will go and ask their beneficiaries to give money. So they set a target saying every household, we are going to ask you for 1,000 rupees, right? 1,000 rupees may not seem a lot to us, but it is a lot of money for rural households 15 years ago to even give back, right? Amazingly, they raised 10 lakh rupees out of these 1,000 rupee things. So that's close to about 1,000 households that they went to, right? To raise this 10 lakh rupees. So again, it shows the power of giving from your beneficiary group itself, right? So people whom you've impacted are more than happy to pay it out for your next generation of giving to happen, for your next generation of impact to happen. I think it's our ability and our willingness to go out there and ask and identify such sources that can yield different mechanisms, for giving. Now, this is more scale giving. I mean, there is an example of an organization in Bombay wherein one of the givers started off as somebody who was raising money for them in the Mumbai Marathon, and has today become a board member in the organization over a period of, I think, about 5-6 years, right? So started off as somebody who was just engaged in helping them raise money to now becoming a board member. I don't think the organization could have asked for more, and the organization gets far more value out of the person being the board member than just a fundraiser, right? He's now enabling much more to happen compared to when he was just a fundraiser. So I think that enabling and engaging with citizens has these benefits, which sometimes just follow a natural progression path, get you more money, but get you more access and get you much more in the long run as well.
This raising from beneficiaries is a new idea. Like, I haven't heard of that before today. And for me, I think, as you were saying, I was also reflecting on whether it just, in some sense, if we are worried to do that, it also is, and I think it just raises the bar on how well you use the money, right? Because the value of the money that you take from someone who you know is not very well off is just so much more. And it's a little bit of, I have to be accountable and make sure that I use that money wisely and well for impact.
Yes, but I mean, yes, it is, because that money means a lot more to that person. But to you, it may yet not mean anything different from any other money that you would have got. But I think the bigger bar it sets on yourself is the quality of your service itself, the quality of what you have given in the first place to ensure that later down the line, that beneficiary will give back to you, right? So if the beneficiary
already earned it.
it's a little bit like why folks from the IITs give back so much to that to their alma mater.
Right.
You don't see the same thing happening down the line with tier 2, tier 3 level institutions, right? And a large part of this comes from the fact that because they believe they've got a lot more from that organization, and they believe, I mean, they put their success because of those organizations.
Yeah.
The attribution is so strong, which is not there down the line. So it's in some sense, the institutions have made sure that the attribution can be strong enough to even then be able to have the courage to go back and ask for money, right? I think a lot of the other organizations won't have that courage because they know they've not delivered such a great level of service when in the first place. And I think it's even more for the nonprofits, that if they think of themselves as potentially going back, then they know that the quality of service that they have to provide to those beneficiaries has to be at a certain level where the beneficiaries will be thankful enough to them to want to give back.
Interesting. So when we do this, I think the flip side of it is, are there any compliance risks and compliance issues to be aware of? Because for me, reaching out to 5,000 people immediately also leads to anonymity in my donations. I don't know if I'm right in that understanding.
No, so I think, yes, the one difference is when I'm reaching out to so many people, and obviously hundreds of donors are giving, it's not something that I can maintain very easily on an Excel sheet and live with it. Unlike if I have 10 institutional donors and 5 corporate donors, it's fine, right? So you must have a system, right? And that's the other element of saying, how do you reduce cost? You must have a technology platform that ensures that you are able to manage all this in a seamless manner with the least level of human intervention, right? Because again, the more effort you put into this, the more it is going to cost, and this is all useless cost, right? This can be easily taken care of by systems and technology. So you do need to have a little bit of that as you look to scale and grow your retail fundraising. I think that is very, very important to just manage costs and ensure that things are happening in a compliant manner. Once a system is there, then you don't need to worry about compliance after that.
So if I now ask you about danamojo, is it danamojo? Where did the name come from? That's my first question. And the second one is therefore, what does it do, and where in this space does it operate?
Sure. So it's danamojo, first of all, and
danamojo.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's obviously, as you can make out, 2 separate pieces. One is dana and one is mojo. Dana, as everyone in Sanskrit knows, is giving.
Giving,
right?
Yeah.
So in Sanskrit means giving. Mojo, one of the meanings in Latin is magic, because we believe that giving is magical and it transforms people.
That's
So,
beautiful.
which is what comes to our tagline, which says experience the magic of giving.
Okay.
And why we chose this was we felt that one, we said we have global ambitions. We want to be global. And how can we demonstrate global? So we said we would like to root it in the two languages, which are the root of all modern languages, right?
Nice.
So it's Sanskrit for the Eastern sphere and it's Latin for the Western sphere. And said we'd like to look at these two languages. And that's how we've come up with
Nice.
that.
Nice. Okay, that is quite beautiful. And so, what does danamojo do?
Yeah. So danamojo basically is a compliance first payment solutions platform for nonprofits, right? We talked about that every nonprofit, if it does retail fundraising, should have a technology platform that enables it, right? And that's what danamojo basically provides. At its very fundamental, it provides payment systems to help in nonprofits accept donations online on their own websites. That is at the very fundamental that at what it does. But we've done a lot of stuff around it, building towards in the near future, I would say, towards a full-fledged donor management system. I think fundamentally we always wanted to say, how do we get more people to give back, right? That's also the reason why my previous job with GiveIndia was very important and passionate about that, which focused on lens more from a donor side of things. So what does a donor want? What is preventing donors from giving back? And one of the eye openers for me from that stage was the fact that when a donor gave to an organization, right, via GiveIndia, the real ability to engage a donor was always with the grassroots organizations because they had the stories from the ground.
Right.
Uh, one level removed as an intermediary, we did not have the ability to engage equally in the same engagement manner that a nonprofit could. And so we said that we have to give that back to the nonprofit. We have to connect the donor and the nonprofit more directly because that has a better chance of the nonprofit engaging with the donor directly, right? And creating a greater level of engagement. So that's really that was really the thought that gave birth to danamojo, and said if we have to do that, we have to first of all make it also simple for a donor to give to the nonprofit in a compliant manner, and for the nonprofit to be able to engage the donor as well in a good manner. So obviously the way to make that happen first and foremost is a payment gateway, which 9 years ago was very, very difficult for a nonprofit to get. You just couldn't get it if you were a mid-size or small-size organization. Only the large ones had it. And I personally found it very unfair that if you were a for-profit, you got a payment gateway very easily, but you were a non-profit, you didn't. At the end of the day, both for-profits and non-profits have government regulations. And if I am government certified, why should there be any difference? Right? So we went around, first of all, solving for that problem, saying, hey, if you are a nonprofit, you should get a payment gateway. But we were also very clear that the offering cannot be so small. It cannot be so minor that we're just saying a payment gateway. And so what we also realized is that nonprofits technologically find it difficult, are not technical companies. They're not technology companies. They are companies, organizations working on the ground with beneficiaries, with communities. Now, getting them to have a technology interface and making that in a manner which is suitable for a more modern audience, which is for the last 20 years been accustomed to a Make My Trip, to a Flipkart, to a Naukri, all of these kind of organizations, the expectation of what my interface will be or what my online experience is very, very similar. So we said we have to build towards that expectation. We are not just substituting what they can't get, what they get, but what a donor should get, right? So since 25 years, we've been getting our tickets online, whether it's IRCTC or whether it's Make My Trip.
Yeah.
Right. However, today also today I think we are glad that most nonprofits are sending ATG receipts digitally, but it was not the case 9 years ago. Right. 9 years ago, people were yet in the mold of sending a lot of this in a physical manner. And we said, if somebody is getting a ticket online, why can't they get an ATG receipt immediately?
Right.
So we said we have to build for that. So those are the kind of things we built for. And as we've gone down that path of having a payment system, I think we've solved for many other problems. For example, recurring payments. Recurring payments, I would say till even 5 years ago, was not a very common thing in the for-profit industry as well, not just the non-profit. But today with danamojo, a non-profit has access to recurring payments across the board without any complication. And recurring payments in terms of technology integrations in India at least is 10 times more complex than one-time payments.
Yeah.
It's actually a lot more complex in managing the technology, ensuring, like receipts are going every month. So when you had one receipt for that one payment, now you have 12 receipts to send for that one payment. So imagine the technology overhead that is there. And that's something NGOs cannot deal with, right? So we brought that to the forefront. COVID obviously brought UPI QR code payments mainstream, right? How do we allow NGOs to gain access to that while managing compliance? Right. So there's this concept of anonymous donations. And most NGOs feel that anonymous donations are illegal, are dicey. But that's not the case. It's the law that allows you to take anonymous donations. So an NGO can take anonymous donations up to 5% of their total donations, right? So most organizations don't even know that. So by providing a product to collect anonymous donations, we brought that to the forefront, saying, hey, this is possible. And then through our product, there was also a way to convert those anonymous into non-anonymous donations by allowing donors to enter their donor details. So we did that. Then couple of years, and so we've always tried to be a compliance-first platform. We've tried to say that whatever you do, you should do it with compliance. So 2 years ago, there was a new requirement the government came up with, which is called 10BD and 10B. So instead of ATG certificates, now donors have to submit 10B certificates to get their tax breaks. So we kind of built that system into our platform as well to ensure that people have it. There have been one of the big problems that was there 9 years ago, even today, is an ability to get foreign and international donations and to manage that in a compliant manner. That's again something we've solved for. So our effort has always been saying NGOs want to ask donors the NGOs who want to ask donors, donors are willing to give, nothing must stop that. Right. So I look at myself as somewhat of a plumber in that respect, fixing the pipes to make sure the money can flow from the donor to the NGO without making it too complex for any party. Right. So we've tried to solve for all these kinds of problems to make sure that it is relevant to various segments of of NGOs. So we have large NGOs on board for whom it matters that they're able to collect all kinds of payments. So any kind of different payment that they are not able to collect, they come to danamojo and we solve that problem for them. Many of them have even come to us for recurring, because even for large NGOs, recurring is complex. It is a problem, Okay, recurring is just too complex even for large NGOs. A lot of them have come to us for international payments, just managing the international payments, the foreign payments in a compliant manner. So we've done a lot of those things which a typical payment gateway could not. For example, with one of the large NGOs, we ensure that passport copy is captured for every donation, right? That the NGO actually checks the passport copy to verify it's an Indian donor or a foreign donor and appropriately route the money. Right. So some of these things no gateway will do because this is just too vertical. Right. It's too specific and they are horizontal players. Right. So that's where we've played a role in trying to say, how do we do this very, very specifically in a very compliant manner for the non-profit sector itself.
Nice. And so from a user experience point of view, this would be on the donate page, what follows?
Yeah. So we basically have a widget which integrates on the donate pages of NGOs across any platform.
Right.
We in fact, even for WordPress, which is about 70% of the websites NGOs use, we have a WordPress plugin that integrates with it. But I mean, it's very simple. It's like a copy paste. We say, and many times people can't even do that much. So we say, if you want us to do that copy paste, we'll do that copy paste for you. So that's again a big help for NGOs because they're not technology people. Right? Most online companies are technology people. So they find it very easy and very straightforward, something of this sort. But NGOs are not technology folks. The NGOs are on the ground folks. So they don't find this easy at all.
And you were also talking about DanaVrddhi. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so DanaVrddhi is essentially the program where we teach organizations about this life framework that I spoke about earlier, the list, inspire, fundraise, engage. We basically started off by running a pilot cohort of 20 organizations where we combined an element of training along each of these modules with coaching. So one of the things we've realized in any program is that there's a lot of training available for people. But that training doesn't necessarily result in something. It's training. You take it up, whether you apply it, you don't apply it, nobody's asking you about it. Secondly, most of this training gets paid for by the organization. But if that individual leaves the organization, the training gets lost. And the organization feels that they didn't benefit. And that leads to a vicious cycle wherein the organization doesn't pay for training anymore. Right. So we said that it's important that whatever money is being spent, anyway, the money is at is not enough for organizations. We're taking some of that money. We must ensure that the organization has something inbuilt, inherent that they're getting out of it. So our entire purpose was not just training people, obviously that was one part of it, but then working with organizations to actually instill the processes, to actually put in place processes and systems that would allow retail fundraising to happen on an ongoing basis. So we had a 4-phase framework, right? LIFE. Each of this was about 4 to 6 weeks. We would spend 1 week on training and then spend the next 3 to 5 weeks on coaching and actually making sure that that process was instilled in the organization, right? So we actually worked with them to say, how do you make this list, right? Where can you make a list for? And then we found that every organization has its different strengths. So somebody has a lot of alumni, somebody has a lot of more corporate, somebody has a lot of volunteers, right? So we found different organizations have different strengths and said, how do we leverage each of their strengths? Because retail fundraising as a concept can be, taught in this way, but at its implementation, it's deeply, deeply individual. Right. So this coaching framework helped organizations to actually put this system in place for each of these phases. And then they'd done all that hard work and we said, okay, so you run a fundraising campaign, raise some money, which is fantastic because pretty much every organization raised more than 10 times what they invested in the program.
Nice.
Right. So they got an immediate payback in that sense from what they invested. But more interestingly, and so we had a matching challenge, so we gave them some matching, but interestingly, that was not relevant to them. I mean, they just kept wanting to raise more. And we had one particular organization which 6 months before that program had done a similar crowdfunding campaign. They raised 8 lakhs. During the program, because of the enhanced list, because of all the pushing that we did, and because of everything else they learned, they raised 18 lakhs. So first of all, doing a crowdfunding campaign so soon is always not advisable, and one doesn't raise money. On top of that, you raise twice more than what you raised last time. So it was the same financial year. It wasn't like 2 different financial years, so you could think of it. So it clearly showed to us that the model was working, and people were benefiting out of it. So then we decided that, and obviously this was a very intense program, a lot more expensive. So we said we'd like to now take it to the masses and scale it up by allowing people to do it. So we used all the videos that we recorded during this program and created an e-learning course out of it, which we launched about a year ago, about 10 months back. And we have about 60 people who are now participating through the e-learning module as well, so that they have access to the same content. And yes, they have to do it on their own.
And the coaching aspect continues? Or
no, the coaching aspect is not there in the e-learning piece. It was there only in the program. And we hope to do more of those programs as well.
And through all of this, are there any patterns, anything that you think are important to highlight? Maybe as a closing question, the question is, what is 3 do's and a don't when you think about retail fundraising for nonprofits?
Okay. That's nice. So I would say one is have a large list, right? I think that is very, very critical. And that is because whatever the size of your list, your engagement is going to be common to all of them, right? I said I'll come back to this, but I didn't. So engagement is going to be common to all of them. So whether your list is 5,000 or 50,000, your engagement effort is going to be almost the same. But if your list is 50,000 instead of 5,000, your return is going to be 10x very clearly, right? And you can only do as much more on engagement, as much more on communication. You can't go beyond a point, but if you keep expanding your list, you have a better potential of getting more donors and donations, right? So I think that distribution is very key, and you keep needing to have that list. I think focus on the list is very critical for retail. The second thing I would say is you must have a dedicated resource to do retail fundraising. And the dedicated resource does not have to be a very expensive resource. It can be a junior resource. It can be somebody who will typically get for 30,000, 40,000 rupees. kind of resource who has to then be guided by senior leadership or the founder on what to do, right? The how to do part comes from the person, but the what to do has to come from somewhere else. And this resource is the key towards doing retail fundraising at a low cost, right? So I think it's very important. The other reason for having a dedicated resource is that fundraising is a very proactive thing. As soon as you mix somebody who's doing operations and this, operations is very reactive on the other hand, right? So they will always get pushed into operation. They'll always think about, okay, what is either there's a new fire happening or new something happening, I will do that. But they will never be able to proactively think about fundraising because it's a more proactive nature. What else should I do with my donors? What more can I do? Because the donor has no demands from their end. Donor is not asking for much. The biggest question, or 90% of the question the donor asks is, where is my ATG receipt?
Right.
Right? And that's a question that the person should not be dealing with. That's the question your system will help you with. Right? So the person is really thinking, how do I get money? Right? I try to differentiate and say fundraising conversation should always be about how money can come in. Once money has come in, what to do with that is not a fundraising conversation, right? Then that's either a customer care support conversation or that's a program conversation, right? How money has to come in is what this person has to focus on day in, day out. Only when they apply their mind to, for those entire 8 hours or 10 hours thinking about that is when they will do new things, more things. So that is the reason why you need a full-time person. Also because the mindset of such a person will be slightly different when you think about doing CSR and institutional, which is not as much about the heart as it's about the head. Right? So here's a person who needs to be able to write stories, need to write in an interesting fashion, needs to kind of, what I would say, mix it up, right? Have different stories, different genres, different things, not get lost in the jargon of the organization. Be able to communicate the jargon of the organization into layman's terms, which is relevant to the retail donor. Right? And that takes effort. That takes a different mindset, takes a different thinking, which is what that person has to do. So I think that's why it's very important to have a different person who's proactively thinking about fundraising and not doing 2-3 different things, and fundraising kind of gets lost in that scenario. And the third thing I would really say is engage, right? I think the only time we reach out to donors is to ask for money. We don't reach out to them enough to engage with them. So I think engagement with donors is very key to you to develop a pull-based model of fundraising, to get money passively from donors. I mean, that's when you start having that, I mean, it's just brilliant. People, you're getting money without actually having making the effort for it, right? And that's when you start loving it. Saying, unexpected money, what I call it. You didn't expect the money to come in and it came, right? So that's when it starts flowing, is when you really start enjoying that fundraising experience. And the don't, I would say, is it's probably a do, is saying don't treat your donors as, with disrespect. Treat them with respect. I would say that. Don't shortchange them just because they are small donors and they don't necessarily have the bandwidth to come and check what you are doing, right? Remember, they've given the money for a particular purpose, and utilize it for that purpose. Honor them by sending them a report related to that purpose. Don't just not do it because they can't come on ground and not check what you're doing. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I think especially on that last one, that's a good point, because it's hard to remember the fact that they are actual donors and you owe it to them to be fully transparent and at least fully respecting the money that they gave and the cause that they gave it for.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much, Dhaval. This has been very enlightening for me, for sure, and definitely, I'm sure, for the people watching. I hope that this helps you to understand retail fundraising, see where it applies, who it applies for, and be able to do it better. So thank you so much for your time and all your thoughts.
Thank you.